the oldest centers in the United States. And I think it was the first one in the Midwest, or it was at least the first one in Wisconsin. 1969 was kind of the earliest history that I read about. It was very early in the gay rights movement. Number 10 Langdon, it was some gay students, and they lived at that address, and they used part of their house as a gay center. In 1972, the gay center was formed. When it got its first physical location, it was called Crossroads, and that was at the corner of Hancock and Johnson Street. From the very beginning, they realized that people needed counseling, people needed kind of support groups, needed a place to be able to talk to like-minded people, get information, referral, and the dancing. And in 1978 is when the Madison Community United, applied for a nonprofit status.
They had a little library, they had offices where people could go and volunteer. They had a phone line, and I still know the number because it's all gays, if you dial out the letters. And it was a number you could call, and people would talk to you about issues or trying to come to terms with your sexuality or whatever it might be. If you had issues, you could call that number and there would be somebody there to talk to.
And at that time, there were a number of, Anita Bryant nationally was doing her anti-gay campaign, and locally there was a minister, a right-wing minister, that was doing a lot of anti-gay activity. And so part of the reason the United came together was to challenge some of those political and media attacks that were happening. And I believe United was also involved in helping with the first gay rights law that happened in 1982.
That was just around the time when being gay was no longer a mental disorder, and the empowerment that came with that.
I have been a volunteer at Outreach over the years, even back to the beginning when it was called the United. Some years, I marched in different pride marches. Other years I was very active in the rallies or the entertainment afterwards. So I've had lots of different roles with Outreach over the years.
So in 1989, Galvanize, which was the Gay and Lesbian Visibility Alliance, had the first march. And we had 8,000 people come to that march. There was a group of like 50 or 75 people that worked on that event for a year, and they had a whole week of like educational workshops, and they brought in parts of the AIDS quilt and had speeches at the field house, and all kinds of things were going on. So that was a really big deal. The problem was they did it on May 6th or something like that, and we had snow, and really cold weather. So, people were all in their parkas, but it was a huge event and a huge march, and so that was really memorable. Back in the early days, we didn't have lots of floats and lots of corporate sponsors. It was just people. In 1998, the United and MGLRC merged, and that's when they moved into our center that was at the Gateway Mall, and we were there for 18 years until we moved out here.
I got to see it change, from the United, which was a much smaller and an organization with a slightly different focus, And then I was able to see it become more of a community center, but our space was much smaller than it is today. And yet we managed there for a number of years, and it became a very comfortable space.
When I was first coming out and I was young and didn't have a lot of social experience, it was really important for me to, to have the United as a place to come.
My first involvement with Outreach was about 23 years ago, and it was Outreach by that point, and I was wanting to come out, and I didn't know quite what that meant or what it would look like, and so I knew about Outreach, and I called, and they had a coming out group for women, and so I took part in the coming out group, and that was a big part of the reason that I was able to come out.
Well, we don't make a difference alone. That's the thing about a community center. We make a difference as a community.
Thinking about the tens of thousands of people who have been affected by our work, and a long time ago, when there were very little resources available, very few places for LGBTQ people, we were a really important kind of beacon. So I'm really glad that we're holding this 50th anniversary celebration, and I think it's important for us to recognize and celebrate our achievements and think about the future.